Welcome to Comic Book School Live. I'm glad you joined me tonight. My name is Buddy Scalera. I'm the founder of Comic Book School. And of course, if you've come here to learn more about the craft and business of making comics, you've come to the right place. As the header showed, I'll pull that up again. Tonight, we're going to have a very special guest. His name is Darren Sanchez. He's a Marvel Comics editor and a publisher at After Hours Press. He'll be talking with you about a three-story act structure, something that we've talked about in our last episode, but by popular demand, more people wanted to know more about that. So Darren tonight is going to be giving to you a full breakdown of what that looks like, page by page, and he's brought examples. So I think you'll really enjoy it. But first, I'd like to introduce my co-host. I hope I do this right. Ready? All right. Well, I brought everybody on. There
Close
you
enough.
go. That's close enough. So pretend you don't see Darren in the
Surprise!
middle. No, so pretend you don't see Darren in the middle. On my far right is Mike Fasolo. You know him and love him from Wizard and from the popular show Robot Chicken, where he has won not one, not two, but three TV writing Emmys for screenwriting. He is a writer's writer, beloved by all. And today we'll be commenting on the work that our guest, who you can now look at in the center of your screen, Darren Sanchez. Darren, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How's everybody doing?
We're
Good,
doing
good.
well. Darren, what is that sports ball shirt that you're wearing? That looks like something athletic.
This is Tennessee Titans and this is Houston Astros. I'm a little bit mixed up right now, but the World Series is starting right now, so
You got to get into it.
So
And those are both hockey teams?
yeah, exactly. Minor league hockey.
Minor league hockey.
Triple A.
You know what? People say I don't know anything about sports, and then they realize how smart I am. Hey, Darren, you struck a chord last week when you talked about story structure. And for people who want to improve their craft, that is specifically comic book writers, you showed this wonderful graphic, which I'll pull up right now. Before we get started, Darren, tell us what this is, and then they don't have to scramble or anything. You're going to take us through this step by step, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What this is there's a lot of ways to go about writing a story or putting together a cheat sheet for yourself, an outline when you write a story. This happens to be the way that I do it. So I cobbled this together for a 20-page story. Now, it's important for pacing to understand how many pages your story is going to be. Generally, your editor will tell you how many pages you have allotted to the story, whether it's 8, 11, 20, 24. You do the outline based on the page count. So the brackets will change. Your act 1 might be 3 pages. It could be 2 pages. If it's 24 format, it could be longer. If you're writing something like Mike might be experienced writing more screenplay type stuff, act 1 could be the first 15 pages, so it really depends on what you're writing and how long it is as to how the acts break down. But this is how I break it down. And in the red, there's little hints as to kind of what goes in those areas.
I don't know how to zoom in on
You got to
Darren.
hit the button again. Hit the button.
I'm hitting the button.
I thought this was just like dynamic cropping.
No, this is
press,
yeah. All right, so here's what we're gonna do.
Boom.
Oh, all right. That actually came out good. For those of you who are just joining us now, and I see the room filling up, you're encouraged to ask questions. Darren is actually willing to take questions from the audience, 1 Bitcoin per question. So you could just put that Bitcoin in the piggy bank.
So
Yeah.
it's 3
So you
total.
can find me on Comic Book School. You can find on Twitter, Mike Fasolo 1987 on Twitter, and Darren, apparently you're on Instagram as F Darren Sanch.
Right. I don't tweet very often, so I just put my IG up there.
You don't post on Instagram very often either.
I don't post on social very often, so but I'll try and be better about that.
All right, you're going to do that for us. Okay, Mike. Any thoughts? Do you outline before you get started, Mike? When you start
I do.
on Robot Chicken?
I have a suggestion for the end of this after we're all done chit-chatting about Darren's thing. If you can put it together as a PDF so people can download it and then use it as their little template if they want.
Hey, who said Mike Fasolo had nothing to add to the show?
That's all I go. I can leave now. That's my.
Ladies and gentlemen. All right, so Mike, you actually give yourself a gold star.
Yes.
So you
thank
get yourself a little gold star. I see people clapping in the audience for you right now.
Well, as they should.
That look at that. It's somebody named Luke from your comic book class, Darren. So you
hey,
brought
Luke,
a fan.
how you doing?
Yeah.
I invited all my students from my Saturday morning comic class to check this out. So
I've
it's
already
fun
lost
stuff.
interest in this. Can we just get started? I mean, can we move it along with Tennessee
Too
Titans?
much for Bud. There's other people involved.
Yeah, I'm not interested in anybody other than me. So, all right, Darren. So, real quick, what I'm gonna do is pull up. Darren was kind enough to provide slides. Let me see if I can find the button where I can share something. Let's see if we can do that. We're gonna share something, a window, and we're gonna share this. So, Darren, you had I know, right?
Nice.
So, Darren, wait, real quick. What is After Hours Press?
After Hours Press is a comic book publisher and also a consulting company who helps clients to create new intellectual properties, new comic books, animation. We do all kinds of stuff for clients, but we specialize in comic books. And
I don't mean to name drop Darren, but you work with Boomer Esiason, and even I know who he is.
Yeah, he's a sports ball guy. He
That's
plays
right.
Division III soccer. Not actually, he's a
probably very good at it.
He played quarterback for the Bengals and the Jets, and he has a foundation for cystic fibrosis. And I created a character for him called Genie the Genius. And Genie is a favorite among probably 3rd to 8th graders. And we've done 6 comics with him so far, and some animations. And I use Genie in comic book class to explain things to the kids in the class. Luke happens to be one of the kids who's reading Genie now. So,
and I do want to shout out Liz Castillo, a friend of mine from my agency days, is clapping, not for any of you guys, but for me. I just want you to know she was just clapping for the little pudgy guy. That's it. That's it. Anyway, Darren, so you created slides for us. Who doesn't love slides? I hope there's hundreds of PowerPoint. Just real quick, give us a quick overview of what we are about to look at in the contents here.
Sure. What I'm going to talk about, before you can outline a story, you need to make sure that the story you're planning has some basic things in it. The basic things that make a good story. I have an acronym for that, and I'll go over that in story elements. One of the biggest things to make sure that you have in your story is conflict, and I'll kind of explain that a little bit. And then we'll dive right into the outline, and we'll go over little points one by one, and you guys please chime in. Audience, please chime in with questions as we go.
All right, so real quick, you're talking about the form factor. You brought this up, and this is what will lead into, I believe, your story outline, right?
Yes, absolutely. The factors you need to consider is how many pages do you have? Okay, if you're telling a one-shot, basically a single issue that's a standalone story, self-contained, then we can use this guide and basically plan it page 1 through 20 using the 3-act structure. You just got to make sure you have the right story elements, that conflict, etc., and you can work out your own ending and make it funny or make it end however you want. So that's the simple plan, and that's what we're going to do today. Is just a self-contained story, one issue.
All right. Now, Mike, do you do the breakdown, the Robert McKee act breakdown? I do.
Yeah. I break it down because I did one of those Robert McKee classes. So
did we do that together? Did we? I think no. We did the other one. We did Pilar Alessandra together.
Did we?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And
yeah.
Were you cheating on me going to Robert McKee without me?
But yeah, I do. I follow the Robert McKee, 1, 2, and 3. And I mean, this is the way Darren has it broken down is it kind of follows that format, which is good.
It's similar. That's good.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm homeschooled, so I'm not as Basically, I read a lot of books, and then I've sat and talked to other writers and stuff about it, and came up with this, which is probably very similar to about 3 or 4 different things that you've read.
I think we recognize how the acts overlap and lead into each other. So we've seen this. Darren, every story has, and I think you've actually taught me this when you were editing some of my stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I use the acronym BMOC, which it's kind of a Brady Bunch thing. Big man on campus is how I tell people to remember it. But beginning, middle, and instead of beginning, middle, end, mine is beginning, middle, obstacle, so you don't forget to add the conflict. And then the climax and the aftermath, or the climax and conclusion. So we'll go over all the other things in the outline as we go. But the main thing is that your story basically is the obstacle part. Is that you got to know what your protagonist wants more than anything, and then figure out what's preventing them from attaining that. Whether it's they want to win the spelling bee and it's a school rival who happens to be a better speller, or if it's they want to win, a boxing championship like Rocky, and there's Apollo Creed, but there's also a lot of other things. There's self-doubt and all these things that those are obstacles that they have to overcome. Now, your story is, how does your protagonist overcome these obstacles? What do they do? He, gets Mick to help him train, and all these different things. That's your story, and so when you're outlining, you have to figure out what your story is. It's how your protagonist overcomes the obstacles to get what he wants, and that's simply how it goes. So
and I remember you mixing. So you would get Mickey to train you for a spelling bee. Is that what we? Because I'm hung up on spelling. I haven't gotten past spelling bee. Like,
why am I chasing a chicken?
Yeah, spelling bee. And then I think I read somewhere once, maybe it was written by the great Mike Fasolo. Everybody can do beginnings and endings. It takes a real writer to write the middle parts. These are the hard parts. Is that you?
Yeah, that was
or
me.
Hemingway.
No, that was all me.
I put you up there with Hemingway. So anyway, Darren, this is a self-contained story. We can do this in 20 pages, which is, I would say, the average page count. When I started off writing comics, it was 22.
Yeah. So basically, business people kept chopping off a page here, chopping off a page there, to make the comic more affordable. And then you had thinner cover paper and all these different ways to save money to create the same 32-page format. It's just got more ads and more, letter pages and that sort of thing. But Marvels now are 20 or 21. Valiants are all 20.
Yeah, I one or two times, I think when we were doing Deadpool, the editor, it was Mike Martz, even let us go to 24 because we needed the pages. That doesn't happen today anymore, right, Darren?
No, it'll happen if some big writer plans poorly and ends up needing those extra pages to finish his story.
I didn't have your outline at the time. All right. So Darren, real quick, what is conflict? I think
okay, conflict can be two things. It can be internal, it could be external. It could be a fight that you have to win. It could be overcoming your fear of heights to go save somebody on the ledge of a building.
Still in the spelling bee, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well,
Chasing
I use
the
spelling
chicken
bee because I teach, 3rd to 6th grade, and so I want things that they can relate to. But a lot of times, it's that they want friends or that things like that. But
right.
There's one major conflict that drives a story forward, and then you want to layer in minor conflicts along the way. And I've even heard, and I don't know if it's done all the time, but I've heard that you want conflict on every page. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but the bottom line is that if everybody's agreeing with each other, and everybody's happy, then you have no story, because happy is boring. You want people who are striving to achieve something, people who are miserable, maybe not themselves, but they're in a miserable situation that they have to work their way out of. So that's basically why you need conflict. Without conflict, you don't really have a story. So,
Yeah, I always tell writers that and people are buzzing in the chat room here, that everything is set up until you get to conflict. You're just setting things up, and then the conflict is when story begins.
the conflict drives the story forward. You want to get to the conflict as early as you can, so that the reader understands what's going on and is not just kind of flipping pages waiting to see what's going to happen. They need to understand what they're in for, like almost immediately. So in Act 1, you have to establish what the main conflict is, and but we'll go over that.
I love this little graphic. Did you make this, Darren? It's very cute.
No, I described something like that and last week, and then I Googled it this morning, and I found that graphic, and I loved it. So I didn't have to create anything.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think
stealing is always good.
Yeah. So, but
borrowing,
outlining helps you see the big picture. And if you've ever made a sign and did the letters by hand, and then you found that you ran out of room, that's kind of what outlining helps with, because if you made the little spaces and counted the letters, you would have figured out how much or how big to make everything. And this is what a writer does when he asks for 24 pages. He didn't plan properly. So maybe they have a big story they want to tell. I don't know. But if you plan properly, you could tell a big story in 20 pages still. You just got to know what to cut.
All right. So, Mike, you used to not outline. When we were doing a little bit of work together, I would be like, okay, here's what happens on page 1. Here's what happened on page 2. And you were like,
just got to sit down and go. And that's, I do still do that sometimes, but I've found lately that it's much easier to outline so you know where you're going, instead of hitting a wall and suddenly you're like hitting a roadblock like that. You're like, I don't know how to get over that.
If you're someone like Fabian Nicieza, who's been writing for 30 years, and basically cranking out a comic story every week for 30 years, you kind of have the outline and the whole format thing in your head. And when you're breaking rules, it's okay because you know the rules in the first place.
Right.
It's not that you're breaking them because you don't know what the hell you're doing. You're breaking them on purpose, and you understand, like, starting at the end where the dead guy, and then you got to figure out what happened, that kind of stuff. Non-linear storytelling, which inexperienced writers probably shouldn't even try, because just stick to linear. But outlining helps you see the big picture, so this doesn't happen like what you see in the graphic.
Yeah, and I actually I'm not sure what's
okay. Outlining helps you to plan a strong end.
We got in there accidentally.
Yeah,
this to me, it's like architecture that doesn't work because the you could see why it doesn't work. And if you plan better, then that kind of stuff doesn't happen. So that's what I'm talking about. Is that needs to be a little closer, So that's all.
I don't feel as good about this graphic. The audience, you were getting Daryl Adams. I came for the graphics. Elizabeth, I like the graphics. Dan, and then nobody's saying they like this graphic.
This one takes a second.
This one takes a second. You know what? I don't want to live here, but this is where I want to live. I think this is great. Now you're going to show us exactly page by page the breakdown of Genie the Genius. What is Genie, just so everybody knows?
Genie is a junior genie who a kid named Andy finds him in a museum. We're looking at issue 2 here, so we're not going to go through the origin and all that, because origins are slightly different. You have to do a lot more setup in origin. So I wanted to give you one that actually fit the structure. But this one picks up at issue 2, and Andy has a genie, and the genie doesn't live in a bottle. He lives on the internet, and he's like super hyperactive, and he wants to help Andy. So if Andy has a project on something, Genie will very excitedly look up everything there is to know about that, and then help Andy. I say help Andy. He does it in a way sort of like I Dream of Genie, where she basically puts Major Nelson in danger every time she tries to help him. Genie kind of does the same thing. He's very well intended, but he's a little reckless in how he helps.
It is a good comic, Mike, and we'll show the comic. I'm seeing the comments here. It's a good thing we're off the toilet photo. Now, you almost lost everybody there, but Genie the Genius. So
I'll walk the fine line.
Yeah, walk that fine line. Take us through this 3-act story structure, and then Mike, he's got the complete breakdown of the book.
There's going to be other words in there?
There's going to be more.
Okay.
Okay.
Philip Burnett's here. Hey, and Vince is here. We got a good audience tonight.
Hey,
Nice.
guys.
Unlike previous ones where we had a bad audience.
Okay, I'm going to race through this because we're going to get a little more in depth when we show the panels. So the 3-act structure, Act 1 is basically all the setup. Okay, you want to bring the audience or your reader into the story by establishing the setting, establishing the characters, and it's important to establish what the conflict is. What does this character want more than anything? And you got to show an opportunity for him to go after that thing. And by the end of Act 1, he'll hit a turning point where he makes a decision to do something that changes his current situation.
And then we were propelled into Act 2.
Right. And you're propelled into a new situation. Like if, for instance, you're invited to a party and you say yes, when you don't really go to a lot of parties,
Mike.
Page 5 would put you smack dab in the middle of a party. It's a new situation where things start happening. By the middle of Act 2, you start to develop the antagonist, the bad guy, the obstacle. You see things not go exactly according to plan because, like I said, if everything's happy, everything goes according to plan, and you got a straight line from beginning to end, then you don't have really a successful story. Imagine a roller coaster that just goes straight and never goes up and down. That's what you have if you don't have that change of plans type of thing in there.
Those are much easier to ride, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, much smoother. True, you could actually, drink coffee on it and stuff, But without the change of plans, you don't have any excitement. So things have to go wrong along the way. There is a point of no return, and that could be up on page 5. That could be, as long as it's in there somewhere, where he makes a decision to actually go for it. Like the moment when Rocky said, "Yeah, I'll go ahead and do the rematch." When Apollo Creed was trying to taunt him into taking that second fight after the doctor told him, "You can't do the fight because if you do, you're going to go blind. Your eye's a mess." So, but by the middle of Act 2, he decided to take the fight. And also, you want to progress your subplots. If you have, let's say Buffy, for instance, I think most of our audience is familiar with Buffy. If you have a subplot where Xander and Cordelia are just starting to date, or something's going on with Giles, or those kinds of things, you want to start plugging those in and developing those along the way. Towards the end of Act 2, they'll hit a major setback where the stakes get raised. If they don't get past this thing, they'll never achieve that goal, or even worse, they could die. So then,
not a lot of that happening in middle school comics, though, right, Darren?
No, well,
Genie the Genius doesn't kill anybody.
Well, no. They have some problems on reentry.
That's a pretty violent spelling bee. It's like the Squid Game of spelling bees. All right, so we're at the turning point, Darren. We're at 20, 15, and then we jump ahead to the final, which brings us to 20. And I will note that at the end of this, Philip Burnett asked a good question. Would a 3-act structure be used for a longer story arc, and how might that be structured? Darren, I feel like that's a follow-up episode where we show how 3 issues of 20 pages each would come together in a meta arc, with sub arcs. But I think Philip is asking a good question. You'd still follow the same structure, except instead of on page 20 you have the aftermath, you actually have cliffhanger, right?
Right. Well, there's a couple ways you could handle that. Like if I'm basically adapting a screenplay or a movie into a comic book format, I know it's going to take maybe 6 issues. Some people will put it together and just kind of end it where it ends naturally in the screenplay. And what you have is these weird endings. They're not necessarily cliffhangers because they're so true to the actual story. It's just, come back next week and part 2, that kind of thing. It just ends abruptly. I think Dune kind of ended abruptly, if without putting spoilers. So that's the way I like to do it, is to have each issue kind of ends in a way that feels satisfying. So you can end on a cliffhanger to push them to the next issue, but you still want to resolve something. So that's where those subplots come in handy. So you can resolve some of the subplots at the end of each one, and then have a cliffhanger. And that's a more, I think, skillful way to.
Well, and here you show aftermath, and Mike, I'm going to use a French word that you use all the time at breakfast, which is denouement, which is the aftermath. What does that translate to?
I thought it was denouement.
Is it denouement? You swallow it?
That denouement.
So
if anybody in the chat room would want to ask us, tell us who pronounces it better. I say denouement, you say denouement. Do you have to tilt your head that way in order to do it? All right. Oh, this is your contact information, which is great, Darren. But real quick, I think the key thing that we're going to do next, Darren, is I'm going to stop sharing. How do I stop sharing? End broadcast? No, that's not it. Stop screen. Oh, thank you, Rob. As I hunt for the button. Denouement. Cheryl Murphy Lawrence settling it for us. Daniel.
Yeah, you're just proven wrong.
Vince said it. Vince. Thank you, Cheryl Murphy Lawrence, denouement. She actually did it phonetically, so I could literally read it. All right, so Darren, we're going to blow through this because you've now shown people the story outline, right?
Right.
Okay. Hey, Rob, how do I do this where it's on the left, where the thing? I can't, right?
Hit the button.
You have to do it during pre-production.
Oh, you mean I had to plan ahead?
Yeah, you have to make a special graphic. Next week we'll have this.
All right, so this is the cover that we've seen. So Darren, this one is called Setup Intro. This is, what is this, page 1? I guess.
That doesn't look like page 1. There's page 1.
Okay.
Okay. So this is basically the setup. It establishes all the characters, and you see kind of the world that they live in. You see Genie introduce himself in the story, and one of the things you want to make sure that you do is to use people's names somewhere early on page 1. You see the mom call, "Your bus will be here in 10 minutes, Andy. Did you finish your homework?" So it kind of sets the stage, and each character is named on page 1, and you also get an idea of what the story is for this one, because basically Andy's lying. He didn't finish his homework, and he's going to need help because he hasn't even decided what his project's going to be yet. So,
Andy's
Mike,
in trouble.
yeah. By the way, there are people in the audience. That is Daniel and Cheryl, both stood up for you, Mike.
Yes, I see that.
So they stood up for you. So you're going to send each of them an Emmy.
Okay.
I mean, the way they give them out there in California,
I can get them back easy.
You get a minute. You get a minute and out burger, don't you?
I'll have 2 more by tomorrow, so it won't matter.
All right, Darren. This is page 2. We're on page 2 now.
okay,
Let's not let this show last until Friday. So we'll try to get a little quick.
Okay, all right. So on page 2, Genie wants to go to school with Andy. He says no. He gives him something to do, which is to basically stay here, and you can use my computer. So
good.
They're talking about the project, and he's telling everybody he's going to have an awesome one when he really has no idea what he's going to do. So that's still setting up the conflict.
Okay, and then this is called Turning Point.
This is a turning point when they figure out they're going to do a project on Mars, and then Genie pops onto the laptop and says, "Mars rover, this is going to be great. See you at home." And then Andy has no idea what he's going to do. So this is the turning point of the story, where we're kind of propelled. We know his project's going to be about Mars.
All right, and then you take us to, what is this called? Page 6, develop antagonist.
Well, no, this is page 6. This is page 5. A new situation. He gets home, and Genie has the Mars rover. He basically made him an exact replica so that he could turn it in for a school project, and it's orange and blue like Genie, and it's powered by like a nuclear fusion or something, and so basically Andy says there's no way I can use this. So that's just showing that Genie's actually kind of the antagonist on this, because he keeps he keeps getting in the way of Robbie trying to finish his project. So
all right. So if where are we in the story right now? We're kind of past the turning point, right?
Right. We're at the beginning of Act 2, where we're developing what's going to happen next, and we're getting to the change of plans.
Okay, so you get into the change of plans, and then we have to go to 6 or 7, right? I can find 6, escalation.
Right. He says, I can't use this for science fair, so Genie has to come up with something else.
All right, and then page 7, escalation plan change, right?
Right. They find out that the Mars rover on Mars basically is dead because it's run out of power, and the solar panels are covered in Martian dirt or whatever, and after like 12 years those things just run out of juice. So they decide that they're going to go up to Mars and rescue the Mars rover, and that's kind of
and what I love here is the snap. The snap. See if I can do it over here.
You can't snap like that. That doesn't. It wouldn't work.
No,
keeping your fingers out like that. No way.
Try it, Mike. He's a genie. He's a genie.
Well, I guess that's true. If he is a genie, he could do it. But your fingers like this, just you know.
You had there was no question when the Flintstones lifted up a car and ran with it.
Yeah, well, come on.
This is where you draw the line.
Prehistoric people could do that.
But I love this snap because what it does is it raises a question of what happens after the snap, and that leads us to the point of no return.
Well, another escalation is that the little sister finds out and she forces herself in. She's going to tell mom if she can't go. So now they're off, and the little sister's tagging along, and this is the point of no return. They're actually in space now, heading towards Mars, and just a little gag. Genie puts them in Star Wars gear, and Andy's like, "What are we wearing?"
And space gear. Got it.
So,
Cute.
So then we skip over, and they change to their actual gear, and we start to progress the subplot. Where
by the way, you're getting some Mariam said she loves the illustration story. Santiago, hey Santiago, says this is his first comic book school class.
Nice.
Liz asked, how does the inspiration strike you to create these stories? Real quick, we're on page 8, but before we go back, how do you get the inspiration, Darren?
Well, for these stories, it was easy. I mean, we wanted to set up something where Genie could teach kids something, and so I made a list of what might be fun things to teach. Like about dinosaurs or the bottom of the ocean or a trip to Mars or those kinds of things. And the goal for this was to establish Genie as a fun character, so that we could later do some medical educational stuff, and it just wouldn't seem like a generic character, but it's already a character that you love, and so. We wanted to just tell fun stories and kind of Magic School Bus style. So,
and Mike, I know you long enough to know that you're inspired by deadline.
Yes, right? I need a deadline, because if I have to go by my own deadline, nothing ever gets done.
That's right. You got a compliment from Philip Burnett, who actually is an artist himself. It said he reminds him of Carl Barks' style. So I agree. I think that's a good thing to point out. Okay, so we're at 9. Which is still in the point of no return, right?
Right. So the goal of this comic is to educate kids a little bit on Mars and have some actual facts in there. So, as they're approaching, I threw in some actual facts about, how big the planet is and where they're going to land and all that sort of stuff. We've talked about the temperature that it's going to be on Mars, and so we sprinkle in some real information. And they're looking for the rover. That's why he pulls up the map. They're trying to figure out where the rover is.
All right. And now the plot progresses, it says.
Right. So they set a record. They're the first humans to ever set foot on Mars. And this is where he asks what the temperature is. So they're basically getting suited up so that they're ready.
This is great. And then we continue with your subplot, you say?
Right. The subplot is to rescue the rover. The main plot is for Andy to have a report for school. So they get on Mars, they find the rover, and they're going to go clean him up. And you could see that Emily has Teddy with a little spacesuit on. And
oh, that's cute.
So yeah,
I felt like I had to say something. I mean, I'm supposed to be on the show with him. I don't know what else to say.
It was cute.
That was cute. Okay, so we go to 12.
Okay, they achieved the goal of the subplot.
Achieve the goal of the subplot. Good. And then on 13, you have a minor setback. Well, this will take us like 3 days if we do it. You know, take us.
No, I'm trying to hurry.
No.
The minor setback on the way home, they encounter a meteor field.
It happens.
That's actually
Space.
like driving in LA, right, Mike?
Oh yeah, you always got those meteor fields coming out of nowhere.
I say that as I drive in New Jersey. It's not like it's much better. Okay, so now you're on. Wait, you got to go to 15. You got this major turning point. Incidentally, boys and girls, children of all ages. If we remember from Darren's plot, this is the end of Act 2, right, Darren?
Yes, this is the end of Act 2, where they're about to go into re-entry. I'm still trying to sprinkle in some educational stuff, but re-entering Earth's atmosphere is potentially dangerous. So we wanted to show that.
All right. So now, just really seriously, when we talk about structure, this was a lot of planning to get to this point in order to get to your final conflict, your final act, and then a satisfying conclusion. You've plotted this out, Darren. How many times did you rewrite this to get it to this point?
I shifted a lot of things, but I kind of knew in my head where I wanted to go with things. I just had to come up with something dangerous. So the meteor field kind of was a last minute addition. But once I read about the dead rovers, how they're just out of gas because they're solar powered and they're covered with dirt, that's when I came up with the subplot of rescuing the rover on Mars.
No, it's very clever. I think it's
you
good.
Didn't want to throw in the spelling bee?
You're still waiting for the spelling bee? That's the third issue.
Yeah, that's the way. Still training with Mickey. All right, so page 16, big moment here. What you called the final push.
Right, they're getting ready to re-enter, and Genie's saying, "Not to worry, we're ready for it." In the next panel, I don't know if I showed it, but when he says we're ready for it, he whips out a tray of lemonade because just he's silly. But then they're re-entering, and you get a little bit of fun, a little moment of danger, and just about right before they splash down, Genie snaps, and which will take you to right around page 17.
A little magical landing, right?
Yeah,
very nice, very nice.
And they're home, and so then Andy has to put together the report. He's been to Mars. He kind of knows what he's doing now. He made a replica out of toilet paper tubes and cardboard, and he's presenting his stuff to his class.
Was it from that roll of toilet paper from earlier?
Is that from that bathroom?
That was the one picture.
How do you reach that on the toilet?
You see how it all comes together when you plan?
Yeah, that wasn't awkward or gross at all, after all. All right.
But he actually, if you see on the bottom of panel 1, he actually brought back some real Mars rocks, and everyone thinks they're props, but they're actual real Mars rocks. And he gets, I think he gets an A. I don't remember, but
all right, hold on. Let's see. Let's see the aftermath. Okay, this is page 20. So you got your little wait, Mike, how do I pronounce that word? The denouement. Denouement. Wow, that's a tough word. So this is your denouement.
Right. This is basically a little gag at the end where NASA is said, "Hey, the rover came back to life," and say, "Let's see what it's transmitting." And the minute the camera comes on, they get a picture of a teddy bear.
Oh,
the helmet. Cute. That's cute.
That's cute, huh?
Yeah.
And what a denouement.
You got to tilt your head. All
right, the comments are rolling in. Liz Castillo said you had her at medical education application. I know that she's in that field. Mariam said do the illustrations need to play a role for the reader to stay with you? The snap being humanly impossible. Oh, look at that. She's picking on the way that this was.
Yeah, I told you it doesn't work.
Well, if you're animating or illustrating cartoons, you're generally like Todd McFarlane drawing Spider-Man. You're going to do exaggerated motions.
So that is exaggeration for if Maryam is a little critical. She's an artist and a school teacher, so she just called you out. Philip Burnett actually gave us a bit of math. Did you see that? The chance of successfully navigating LA traffic is approximately 7,967,000 to 1.
You're supposed to say, "Never tell me the odds."
Yeah, right? Never tell me the odds.
Very nice, very nice.
So yeah, so Darren, that was really good. Now I actually have a surprise here, and I'll try to share my screen again. Give me about 30 minutes, and I'll pull up my share screen. How do I share screen?
Yeah, hit the share screen button.
How do I? Where is that?
It's right there, over on the left.
Stop screen?
No, share.
No, you did
share.
Stop screen to share.
All right, I did, right? Isn't that true? All right, yep. And then we're going to go to comics, share, and Darren, due to his extreme generosity, has made this issue available to you for free. Ooh. So if you watch, I know, right, Mike? So if you watch this, you can actually read the origin of Genie the Genius, and issues 1, 2, and 3 are available for free for you. Am I right, Darren?
That's it. There's also the cystic fibrosis issue up there, which is right there. And there's another one called Big Air Jerry, who's in the same universe as.
I think you got to. I think you need. I think you need to
page
QA
can't
your
be
website.
Found.
You're gonna have to QA your website, Darren. This is
okay.
Is,
well, the ones on the bottom work.
I'm out of here.
It's too much.
So yeah, here they are as PDF. So people can follow along with your outline and actually then read the issue, which is actually quite good, right, Mike? You've checked this out, haven't you?
Yes, I read it online because it was free.
It was free. That's pretty much it. But they can find this at what is it, Darren? Genie the Gene.
GenieTheGene.com /comics if you want to get to that page, but you'll see it.
And there's materials for parents and educators here. So the people who are educatory or parenty can go there as well, right?
Ideally there would be, but that website is under construction a little bit. So
oh, I thought maybe it was just me. I was like, oh,
don't click the buttons. Don't.
The comics
not
work.
Found. So anyway, for all the parents out there and the educators, when he gets to it. So anyway, this was pretty fantastic, Darren. Anybody else have any questions or any huzzahs? Oh, Liz Castillo said, great work, guys. Daniel Bezetta said, cool. And Ma. Oh, denouement. There you go. What was the conflict? What was the conflict in this, Darren? Do you recall?
The conflict is that Genie wanted to help, and Andy told him, I don't need your help, because in issue 1, he almost gets him eaten by a dinosaur. So he kind of says...
Happens all the time.
It's like Major Nelson with Genie, saying, stay home, don't use magic, and I don't need your help. And he ends up on a trip to Mars. So
and you gotta have a round of applause from my friend Santiago, who I know is dialing in from California. So there you go, Mike. It all comes back to Cali.
Yeah, we're neighbors. Yeah,
you are neighbors. Yeah. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So award-winning writer Darren Sanchez takes us through a complete outline for a 20-page comic, which is the average. This is a template for you. We'll make this available on the website. We should remind people to like, subscribe. Cheryl Murphy, no, thank you. And Daniel, thanks for the round of applause. Tonight, we're also going to be doing, let me take it back to I don't have pop-up guest today, but what I do have is I have the Check It Out. Mike, Check It Out is probably, I think, one of your favorite parts of the show.
Of course.
This is the part of the show where we give something to somebody to check out. Mike, would you like to be the first to go?
Sure. I'm going retro today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with
Astro City. You always loved Astro City.
Yes, Confession. This is probably my favorite storyline in Astro City. And this one follows the story of the Confessor, who is a hero in Astro City, but it's seen through the eyes of his new sidekick, Alter Boy.
I remember
And
that. Yeah.
as they go on their, crazy Astro City adventures, you find out exactly who the Confessor is and was. And I don't want to give too much away, but it's a pretty awesome storyline for Astro City. Probably my favorite one.
I remember that storyline and enjoyed it as well. So check it out. Darren, do you have a check it out to share with our audience?
I do. This comic is it's a graphic novel, but it's from 1976, and it's still one of my favorite comics that introduces or collects all the first appearances of Marvel's biggest villains. And as you can see, in 1976, they're still using the same ones: Dr. Doom and Loki and Green Goblin and Dormammu and Mephisto. So it's a great.
Is it Dormammu or Dormammu?
Dormammu.
It depends on the French pronunciation, actually. So
Dormammu and denouement.
You got to turn your head slightly when you say it.
I have those books, Darren, and I've always Vince. I love Bring on the Bad Guys too. Vince said he loves it with all caps. That got me into the history of a lot of the Marvel comics and the origins. So I'm going to zig a little bit while you guys have zagged. I wanted to show you something that I made. I actually made this with Nicole. This was, I used that plastic gel that you pour in there and it hardens, and I poured it into the top of a peanut container, and then I cut out the Hulk and put him in there. And this is when you see me resting my drink on something, this is my drink coaster. So I've made a series of these drink coasters with Nicole. So it's a little arts and craft thing that we do over the summer, and then we will do again over Christmas break. So arts and crafts.
Are they all the Hulk or different?
No. What we would do is we would get comics and they were, beat up. Somebody had donated a box, a giant, like a short box, I think I would say, of comics that were either coverless or half covers. You guys remember half cover comics? Yeah. And they were half covers because at the newsstand, they're supposed to cut off the cover, rip it, send it back and get a refund. And they were supposed to dispose of them, but nobody disposed them. They ended up in barbershops and whatnot. So my daughter was gifted these. And after she read them, we cut these out, perfectly cut these out. And that's what we did. So
well done.
Yeah, I'm the Martha Stewart of comics. That's from Santiago. And I don't know what Daniel Bazada did for us there, but it looks like he did some sort of some books.
And some other books.
Some other books. So anyway, I don't know these emojis.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, Daniel. Clearly, I didn't know these emojis. I'd actually coworker once had said, like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? And I sent a picture of an eggplant.
Oh, no.
Because I was working on the garden. I came in on Monday. I came in on Monday and wondered why.
Had to go to HR.
True story. You didn't know that. I thought I was gardening. I also sent picture tomatoes. I was like, here's an eggplant. But it really was. I was working in the garden with an eggplant. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming out. Darren, thanks so much for this valuable educational session.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
It's good to see you guys again.
Yeah. So, Darren, remind people where they can find you, where they should go for information about After Hours Press, and then where's the best social handle for you?
Instagram is probably the one I go on the most, and that's at F Darren Sanchez without the EZ, and also on Twitter at Darren Sanchez without the F. And afterhourspress.net is the website for After Hours Press. And also, Buddy and I are working on cleaning that up a little bit too, because there's some.
How did I have to do the website?
You built it.
Yeah. So now you got to clean it.
He's like, Buddy and I we are. Are we getting paid for this? What's our deal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In comics.
Yeah, that's how he always pays me. He always pays me in comics.
Half-cover comics.
Mike, where can they find you, and what are you working on? Anything that you can talk about? Anything?
I have some freelance stuff that I can't really talk about now, but yeah, a few quiet things. But yeah, Instagram and Twitter is Mike Fasolo 1987. Both. I don't really post that much here and there. I retweet things. That's about it.
That's it. Okay. Well, I thought you did a great job as co-hosting tonight, Mike.
Thank you.
But next week, I got a big announcement. There's going to be a guest co-host next week. That's right. That's right. My wife's birthday is next week, so I will not be live casting. We will have a special guest host, and you will be there with that guest host, Mike.
Oh boy, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so look for us on social media. Be sure to like this episode, subscribe, and if you are really motivated, follow me on social media at Comic Book School. Thanks for joining us tonight to talk about the craft and business of making comics. Darren and Mike, don't drop off. We're just going to the green room. Rob, anything to add as a final thought? Rob's our announcer voice. Anything real quick before we go? We have 2 minutes left.
Well, in the quick 2 minutes, Mike Seeley was one of the people who were part of the first Panel One anthology. He actually has launched his own Kickstarter, and that is called Eclipse. He's the Hawaiian superhero. Really quick, name a Hawaiian superhero.
Eclipse.
There you go. Now you
The Rock. The Rock. Isn't it The Rock?
Oh, yes, but he's a superstar, too. So go to Eclipse Comics, COMIX.com to back the first Hawaiian superhero that anyone's really ever heard of. Let's be honest. He just is. Besides The Rock, but The Rock is just something completely different. And that's it for this week. Buddy, take us out.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the craft and business of making comics. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday and every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week. And then we run the credits. Go ahead, Rob. Run the credits. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Hit the button.
Hey. We'll see you next week. Same buddy channel, same buddy time.
Yay.